Here's what you need to know. For centuries, some of the world's most influential thinkers have argued that an object's true worth doesn't come from gold or silver. No, it comes from the human sweat and effort required to make it.
Welcome to the MoniLytics channel where money meets research. So today we're going to tackle one of the biggest, most fundamental questions in all of economics. What actually makes something valuable? Let's get right into it.
We're diving deep into a really powerful and pretty controversial idea called the labor theory of value, or LTV for short. The core idea is actually pretty simple. It says that the real value of anything, whether it's a loaf of bread or the smartphone in your pocket, is basically a direct measurement of the human effort, the labor time, it took to create it. But before we can really unpack the LTV, we have to take a step back and ask an even bigger question. It's one that economists have been wrestling with forever. What do we even mean when we say the word value?
You know, the whole debate really boils down to two main camps. On one side, you've got this idea of intrinsic value, that something is valuable just because of what it is. Water's useful for survival, so it has value. Simple. But then you have exchange value, which is all about what you can trade that thing for. The labor theory of value was this incredible attempt to build a bridge, to find one objective yardstick that could explain both.
And this idea, this connection between human work and real worth, it's not new, not at all. In fact, it's got some really deep historical roots that go back way before it ever became some formal economic theory.
Just look at this timeline. The concept that labor is what creates value has this amazing history. It goes all the way from the Peasants' Revolt in 1381 straight through to Karl Marx in the 1800s. And what's really fascinating to me is the line you can draw from Benjamin Franklin, who was a huge champion of this idea, directly to Adam Smith, who then formalized it. They weren't just living at the same time, they actually knew each other. It just goes to show you how these huge ideas can evolve from one great mind to the next.
So the key takeaway from this early period is that all these different people, we're talking rebels, we're talking founding fathers, they all landed on this one powerful idea, that labor is the real source of economic value. They saw human effort as the ultimate currency, the only true way to measure what something is worth.
All right, so let's look at how this raw idea got turned into what we now call classical economics. Now, Adam Smith gets a lot of the credit for formalizing the theory, but a lot of that groundwork was actually laid by people like Benjamin Franklin. Franklin argued that the natural value of something is measured by how much labor it saves you, the owner. Then Adam Smith took these kinds of concepts and built this massive, comprehensive framework around them in his huge work, The Wealth of Nations.
This quote right here really gets to the absolute heart of Smith's whole argument. He basically believed that when you go buy something, what you're really buying is the labor of the person who made it. The price you pay is just a stand-in, a representation of all the toil and trouble that went into producing it.
But Smith's model, as neat as it was, created a real logical puzzle. Think about it. If every single good is bought and sold for its true labor value, meaning the price you pay is exactly equal to the cost of the labor to make it, then where on earth does profit come from? If a factory owner pays for the labor, pays for the materials, all at their fair value, and then sells the final product at its fair value, there shouldn't be anything left over. This became known as the capitalist's dilemma. And this is exactly where Karl Marx steps onto the stage. He took the labor theory of value from classical guys like Smith, and he twisted it, he adapted it to solve that exact problem. And in doing so, he built his entire critique of the whole capitalist system.
Marx didn't just, make a few small adjustments to the theory. No, he completely reframed it. For him, profit wasn't some kind of mysterious accident of the market. Oh no, he saw it as a direct, predictable outcome of the power imbalance between owners and workers.
Marx used this incredible analogy to explain what he meant. He said, look at a peasant's serf. It's super obvious which days the serf works on his own land and which days he works for the Lord for free. But in a factory, that line gets all blurry. The worker gets a wage, so it looks like he's being paid for the full day. Marx's big point was, he's not.
So this chart right here visualizes Marx's whole idea. He said that a part of every workday, which he called necessary labor, is the time the worker spends just creating enough value to cover their own paycheck. But the rest of the day, the surplus labor, that's when they're essentially working for free, creating all the extra value that goes straight into the owner's pocket as profit.
And that brings us to this key term, surplus value. For Marx, this wasn't just some line on a spreadsheet. It was the engine that powered the entire capitalist system. Profit, in his view, is just systematically pulled from the unpaid labor time of workers. So, If this theory was so influential, you have to wonder what happened to it. Let's take a look at the legacy of the labor theory of value and why it's not really the dominant way of thinking in economics anymore.
Well, mainstream economics, what we call neoclassical economics, pretty much dropped the LTV, and for a few big reasons. First, a whole new theory came along called the marginal theory of value. It argued that value is totally subjective. It's all about how useful the next bottle of water or slice of pizza is to you. Critics also said, hey, how do you even measure this socially necessary labor time? It's almost impossible. Plus, the theory has a really hard time explaining the price of things like a one-of-a-kind piece of art, or why prices for everyday goods can bounce around so much.
But, and this is a really big but, just because it was rejected by the mainstream doesn't mean the labor theory of value is dead, not even close. It is still the absolute cornerstone of Marxist economic thought, and it continues to influence all sorts of alternative and critical theories that really challenge how we think about the economy today. It forces us to ask some pretty tough questions about where wealth actually comes from.
So that leaves us with this huge question, right? If value doesn't come directly from labor, then where does it come from? Is it how useful something is? Is it about how rare it is? Or is value just what we all collectively agree it is? The debate that kicked off centuries ago is definitely still alive and well. If you found this research valuable, please like the video, subscribe to MoniLytics, and check out the affiliate links in the description to support the channel. And stay tuned for our next deep dive, where we'll be shifting our focus to the use key routine 1739 productivity system.